So not every hack works, and here's one that I want to test. What's this immersion blender doing here? I recently saw a video, and it's using an immersion blender, but instead of the proper way, which is like this, it's used upright with the blade facing up. So I want to try it out and then share my opinion, express how I feel about this particular hack in general. So you'll need some kind of ingredient that you'll crush up. I think the example is typically nuts, but you're basically using your immersion blender as a food processor. So I'm gonna grab a couple nuts here, put them into the chamber, and then you cover it with a plastic zip bag, and then you want to hold it pretty firmly around the base of the blender and then let it rip. This is why we test internet hacks that seem like great solutions when in truth, they are disasters. You want it gripped tightly so that whatever the contents in here don't go everywhere, and clearly it just rips through. It's so much force from the blades that it is going everywhere. What a mess. When I originally saw this, my instant thought and reaction was, this probably isn't a good idea because an immersion blender is not meant to be used upright. I'm just ignoring the mess because I just can't deal with it right now. But the chamber is so shallow, literally I can only put like maybe 6, 8, 10 of these almonds in there. So you're not really even processing that much. And the blade sits above the food, not below it. Gravity pulls it down so it can blend and process. So this may seem like a clever hack, a clever use of a kitchen device, you know, blend maybe some peppercorns in there, but this is an absolute mess, an absolute disaster. And a lot of these internet hacks depend on the model, the style you have. So this immersion blender has some holes in the bottom. This lets the liquid or whatever you're blending escape and blend back in. So it's designed for a specific purpose. It's designed to be used in liquids, not for dry ingredients. So sometimes a hack is not a hack when you're using something in the way that it's not designed for. So I'll call this a fail, and I'm not trying it again because clearly it ripped through the plastic. This blade is so powerful. This is like a good quality immersion blender. It's not even the blade ripping the plastic. The blade is so powerful that it is ejecting high velocity almonds out of the side, and that's what caused the bag to rip, like almost instantly. And I'm just left with a mess to clean up. Okay. The other factor with an immersion blender is safety. These devices are really handy kitchen tools, but you wanna be extra cautious with them. There's really no protection from the blade that is very sharp, and it's easy to trigger the blade just with the switch. Most food processors have safety mechanisms where they need to be closed and locked before the blade even operates. Immersion blenders have a little bit of a safety curve because anybody can just push the button with no safety guards, and that blade is fairly dangerous. So using this improperly is an opportunity for accident and injury. So I would caution about using this for its unintended purpose. So this hack, this trick, a plastic bag, an immersion blender used upright, do not do it. It's not stable, it's not safe. This hack is so whack. This is a do not try this at home. For experts only, and for experts I would caution against it. I need an instant replay because the second I pulsed it,
this hack is so whack.
Here's something I learned too. This immersion blender has 2 speed settings. So there's like a 1 and a 2, which changes the force of the blade, like how powerful the blade is. I didn't even know this had that on there. So check your immersion blender. It might have multiple settings. I've had this thing for years and never knew it had 2 settings. That's also why when you get a new device, a new product, you should probably read the manual before you use it. But immersion blenders are so simple. I was just like, yeah, it has a power button. Yeah, I just stick it in, pulse and blend. I would actually recommend if you're using an immersion blender, if it's plugged in and it's not in use, just detach that blade. That way you can't accidentally trigger it. This blade is still sharp if it's hanging out, but at least you can't accidentally trigger the power. So even if you're in between uses, I would still disconnect it just as an additional safety precaution. Immersion blenders, great tool to have, but say you do want to process just a little bit of an ingredient, here's some safer, better tools that you can use. Of course there's hand chopping, but if you want to take a little bit of the effort out of it, a little manual chopper like this is great. These are super affordable if you don't already have one yourself. They come with a little chamber. This one's super old. You can tell I've used it a lot. I usually use it to chop garlic, but you can do herbs, you can do anything just like a mini food processor. And these are great because they're manual. Don't need to plug them in, don't need to charge them. It's just a slap chopper. Put your ingredient in. No knife skills, super safe. You can't get to the blade, you can't hurt yourself. And you can go as coarse or as fine as you want to. These are a great tool, simple method to chop, process a small amount of any ingredient just about. As long as it fits in the chamber, can work with the blades, and these are fairly easy to clean. You can find models that are dishwasher safe, so really no worries there. The other option, I've upgraded to a burr grinder for my coffee, so I have my regular coffee grinder just available that I now use for spices and blending ingredients. So this is a mini food processor in itself, and it's designed to be used this way. It has a safety mechanism where you can't trigger the blade until the lid is on. So a spice grinder or a coffee grinder is a great alternative for a small food processor. You can do peppercorns in here, you can do nuts in here, any kind of ingredient you want to pulse and turn into a powder, you can use this. So same method, you put this in the chamber. Let's do some pecans. Gonna put some pecans in there. Put the lid on. And these are great because a few pulses, you can get a more coarse texture, or you can just let it go to get a fine texture, and you can just keep going and going. No mess, safe to use, and you can control how fine or coarse you want your mixture to be. So spice grinder, great alternative to use to properly blend and process ingredients. And this is one of my favorite kitchen tools. It's a food processor, but just smaller. So if you want to get something super specific for a food processing job, just get one of these small food processors. They're so easy to use and really convenient, and the small capacity makes it great to make little amounts of anything. You can make pesto in here, you can make salsas in here, you can blend nuts. I've made graham cracker crust in here for baking. You can do so many things in this small food processor without hauling out your big, huge food processor. This is a great daily tool to chop and mix, make crust, make sauces in a device designed to do it. So you can add in whatever ingredient you want in here. And these come in different models, different styles. There's a variety of small processing units that you can get. And a lot of times you'll get a blender. So if you get a blender system, they come with an attachment with a small food processor. So I like kitchen tools like that too, that, you know, the base works for a blender, a food processor, a small food processor. So you might have one of those as well, which gives you a lot more versatility in the kitchen. But it's just that simple. A few quick pulses and you can chop nuts securely, safely, and with some control. So what should you be using your immersion blender for? It's great for sauces in the pot. These are great because usually it's a mess to dirty up a blender by pouring a hot soup or hot liquid into a blender to process it. You can just do this right on the pot, right over the stove. You just put this in, pulse it in your pot, and you can make sauces, soups really easily that way. I also use these for vinaigrettes or for homemade mayo. I've used that before. So you can make a variety of things, either in a mason jar or tall container with your immersion blender. And these are mostly designed to be used with liquids, not with solids. So you wouldn't want to just, pulse up some nuts in a container. These are designed to be used with liquids. And as a bonus and quick, easy way to clean your immersion blender, so you have sauce all over this or it's really gunked up, I'd usually do this in the sink, but just put this in a container with your soapy water and pulse it. That'll clean the blades, it'll clean the actual immersion blender itself. You just rinse this off and it's clean. So that's the easiest, quickest way to clean an immersion blender. You could do this in any kind of tall jar or container. Not every hack is exactly what it seems, and I'd be extra cautious, especially when something seems maybe a little unsafe. Probably don't want to try it at home.